On this 25th of December, 2023, so many Western Christians living a carefree life are celebrating Christmas and supporting the state of Israel. These frauds have no care or concern for the Greek Orthodox Christians or the Coptic Christians or the Byzantine Catholics or the Armenians or the Syriac Orthodox Church or the Assyrians. They do not care about the real Christians. The poor among the Roman Catholics would agree with what I'm saying. You got to keep in mind, when we're talking about the Roman Catholics, it's a bit more complicated because, that is where a lot of the mess starts, but not because of their religion. And this is something I'm going to have to say. This video is in solidarity to the Christian Palestinians who have had to cancel Palestine this year. I don't say Merry Christmas and I don't celebrate Christmas, but in the situation of where an entire, the actual Amalek, that being the state of Israel, is speaking in my name and then having the audacity to call the Palestinians Amalek when it is actually the state of Israel itself that's Amalek. It's projection. Netanyahu's projecting. I mean, he's Lord Haman. When his name is said, Netanyahu, we should drown it out every Purim. Anyway, Amalek, if you know anything about anything, Amalek is in a strictly historical context, it could only be fictitious if you understand anything about where the Jewish scriptures come from. That's the first thing to know. And then the second thing to know is the actual context to this Amalek is that Amalek is not any group per se. It's not any one group. Each generation has an Amalek, and each time we are expected to wipe out this Amalek. But you see, what is Amalek? Amalek refers to that which seeks to destroy the Torah culture, that which seeks to destroy the Sinai religion of covenants and oaths, that being Judaism. And no one is more invested in doing that than the state of Israel. Many authentic rabbis had referred to the Nazis as Amalek, and that's true. And what happened? The irony, though, is that the ones that followed the command to take down Amalek would have been the Jewish partisans, majority of whom were Bundists. And today, that means we do have to start considering partisan actions against the state of Israel, because we are already seeing the signs of America. It hasn't left its support for Israel, but we're already seeing signs of it happening. But we're seeing all this mess. We see no mention of the fact in the corporate media that Jewish people, by and large, we oppose the occupation of Palestine. We oppose the state of Israel. It's almost as if the United States is going to try to blame this on the Jewish people. You should never rule that out. If America is to protect its interests, America needs to keep the empire going. And if the Jewish nation is all of a sudden embracing its roots as a diaspora nation, and we were a diaspora nation before we were the custodians of Palestine. There's something to understand about that. We never owned Palestine. We were the custodians of Palestine, and our kingdoms were just custodian holders of the land. And those kingdoms fell, according to our own scriptures, because those kings became monarchs. And that vindicates the concerns of the prophet Samuel. So, at this time, I wouldn't know, but yesterday is when the vigil. Yesterday was the vigil that Dr. Weisfeld, was setting up, and putting out the word that he was going to be, in the protests. I've sent out the flyers and the pictures online and in the real world to everybody I can. So, I have not heard yet how that went yesterday. But anyway, this video really is a message of solidarity for the Palestinians. I never say Merry Christmas, but I do here say Merry Christmas, Palestine. I hope that we can rebuild your parishes, your cathedrals. I hope that Christian Palestina can be restored, along with Muslim Palestina, and I hope that Jewish Palestina, Meir Sharim, the Jewish Palestinians, will remain. I hope that the Samaritans will remain. I hope that the Druze will remain. This can't happen without the state of Israel being dismantled and large encouragement of the Hebrews who call themselves Israeli falsely, without large encouragement of them to go to whatever country they want to go. And which ones can stay, that would be up to the Palestinians. But, I'm not going to go along with this white supremacist stuff where they try to, obfuscate their own responsibility. Like, well, they can, have their choice of where they want to go in Europe. That may sound nice, but it should be their choice to go wherever they want in the world. Because it's like this. The Hebrews are guilty. They're guilty of harming Palestinian Jewish, Palestinian Christian, and Palestinian Muslim. They are guilty of committing Holocaust here. What's being done in Gaza is a Holocaust. And the biggest victims of this particular Holocaust in Gaza are Christian Palestinians. How ironic is that? So, with all of this evil and deception going on in, this capitalist world where we are living in, I reinforce that, the Boon stands in solidarity with the Palestinian Christians, and it is regrettable that you've had to cancel your Christmas this year, and that Western Christians, mostly just do not give a shit. And I'm trying to keep my language as clean as I can, but I'm going to start with this video is dedicated to that cancellation of Christmas in Palestine. So, this first clip comes from Al Jazeera. It came out yesterday.
On Christmas, wars are buried. Noha Tarazi hums along this traditional Christmas carol in the Lutheran church in Bethlehem. But her sister Elaine was buried under the rubble. She was taking refuge in the Greek Orthodox Church, Gaza's oldest Christian establishment, and the church was hit in an Israeli bombing on October the 19th.
My brothers went to Latin church, but two sisters went to the Greek Orthodox Church. The first shelling was to the Greek Orthodox. Immediately, not as they said around it, no, immediately. She was under the sand, and they were looking for her, and she stayed 4 hours under the sand, buried.
Her brother Frage didn't make it. Noah says he needed an urgent medical operation, but he could not get to a hospital. Noha comes to church to find solace. She gets support from the community, even from those she doesn't know. A delegation of church leaders around the world traveled to the occupied West Bank to express their sympathy and solidarity.
God will not leave us alone. So it's not easy for me to accept this because all my family are there. Not easy. And I'm not able even to go anywhere.
Born and raised in Gaza, Noha married a Palestinian from the occupied West Bank. Both her and her family need Israeli military permit to visit one another. Last time she was allowed into Gaza was 6 years ago. But Elaine was able to come to the occupied West Bank. Noha shows us how they stood in front of the Christmas tree in Bethlehem a few years ago. Now Noha has one brother, one injured sister, many cousins, and family members in Gaza. It's been a week since she last heard from them.
I don't accept myself to celebrate Christmas while my family are facing hell on earth.
Palestinians take pride that Bethlehem is considered the capital of Christmas. Every year, a big tree is lit up to welcome pilgrims and tourists from all over the world. This year, the lights haven't been turned on. There's no Christmas tree. As Palestinians say, there's nothing to celebrate.
As you can see, the manger square is empty, and the mood is that of frustration and sadness. But many here say they refuse to give up on hope. In the middle of the killings, suffering and pain, it's the one thing left for them. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera, Bethlehem, the occupied West Bank.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
If that doesn't move you, you have no soul. This following clip also came from Al Jazeera just yesterday.
My brothers went to Latin church, but two sisters went to the Greek Orthodox church. The first shelling was to the Greek Orthodox immediately, not as they said around it, no, immediately. She was under the sand, and they were looking for her, and she stayed 4 hours under the sand, buried. God will not leave us alone. So it's not easy for me to accept this because all my family are there. Not easy. And I'm not able even to go anywhere. I don't accept myself to celebrate Christmas while my family are facing hell on earth.
Now let's get into a presentation by Democracy Now!, which came out on December 22nd, 2023.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Christmas has been canceled in Bethlehem. As the death toll tops 20,000 in Gaza, we begin today's show in the occupied West Bank. Yes, in the city of Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ. The Christmas season is normally a festive time in Bethlehem, but not this year, as church leaders have canceled public Christmas festivities, citing Israel's devastating attack on Gaza. This is the Reverend Isaac Munther, the Palestinian pastor of a landmark Lutheran church in Bethlehem. He addressed his congregation earlier this month in front of a nativity scene with the figure of Jesus Christ in a keffiyeh surrounded by rubble.
Christmas is a ray of light and hope from the heart of pain and suffering. Christmas is the radiance of life from the heart of destruction and death. In Gaza, God is under the rubble. He's in the operating room. If Christ were to be born today, he would be born under the rubble. I invite you to see the image of Jesus in every child killed and pulled from under the rubble, and every child struggling for life in destroyed hospitals, and every child in incubators. Christmas celebrations are canceled this year, but Christmas itself is not and will not be canceled, for our hope cannot be canceled.
That was the Reverend Isaac Munther, the Palestinian pastor of a landmark Lutheran church in Bethlehem. He spoke in front of a nativity scene with the figure of Christ surrounded by rubble, the baby Jesus. Earlier this week, Pope Francis accused Israel of committing terrorism in Gaza after an Israeli sniper shot dead 2 women, an elderly woman and her adult daughter who had tried to save her mother at a Catholic church in Gaza City where they had sought refuge. It was the Holy Family Parish Church. Politico reports Israel recently attacked a church and a convent in Gaza, even though congressional staffers in Washington had urged Israel to protect the religious sites and gave them the coordinates of the churches. We go now to Bethlehem, where we're joined by the Reverend Mitri Raheb. He's president of Dar al-Kalima University in Bethlehem, Palestinian Christian theologian who's authored many books, including Decolonizing Palestine, the Land, the People, the Bible. It's hard to say Merry Christmas to you, Reverend Professor Dr. Mitri Rahab, but I will ask you how you're observing Christmas this year. Talk about Bethlehem.
You know, it's a very sad Christmas. I don't think in my entire life I experienced so much sadness, but also so much anger about what's happening in Gaza. As you said, the celebration, the festivities were canceled in Bethlehem. So you don't have Christmas lights, you don't have Christmas tree in Bethlehem. There are no tourists coming because of the war. And the people are not up for celebrations because our people in Gaza, but not only our people in Gaza, also our people in the West Bank. We here in the West Bank, we experiencing apartheid, colonization by Jewish settlers, and you know, the death tolls, as you said, 20,000 in Gaza, but also even in the West Bank in the hundreds, and also the detainees, Palestinian detainees within these 75 days in the West Bank are over 3,000.
You have said that the story of Christmas, the story of the birth of Jesus, is more relevant now than ever, even though you will not be having festivities around this.
Correct, because the Christmas story actually is a Palestinian story par excellence. It talks about a family in Nazareth in the north of Palestine that is ordered by an imperial decree of the Romans to evacuate to Bethlehem, to go there and register. And this is exactly what our people in Gaza has been experiencing these 75 days. It talks about Mary, the pregnant woman, on the run, exactly like 50,000 women in Gaza who are actually displaced. Jesus was born actually as a refugee. There was no place at the inn for him to be born. So he was put in a manger. And this is exactly what also the kids that are coming to life these days in Gaza are experiencing. You know, most of the hospitals are damaged, out of service. And so there is no delivery places for all of these pregnant women in Gaza. And then you have the bloodthirsty Herod that ordered to kill the kids in Bethlehem to stay in power. And in Gaza, over 8,000 kids, they have been murdered for Netanyahu to stay in power. And you have this message that the angels declared here, glory to God in the highest, peace on earth, which was actually a critique of the empire, because glory belongs to the Almighty and not to the mighty. And the peace that Jesus came to proclaim is not the peace, the Pax Romana, the peace that is based on subjugation and military oppression, but on human dignity, equality, and justice. And this is actually what we call for. And I have to say, I find it really a shame that that in this season, where every church hears these words, peace on earth, that the United States is vetoing even a ceasefire. It's a shame.
I wanted to ask you about this report in Politico. Congressional staff tried to protect Gazan churches by sending locations to Israel. That's the headline. Now, you're in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank, and this is about Gaza. The Israeli military received and confirmed the coordinates of the church and covenant in Gaza, both of which aid groups say were later struck by rockets and snipers. It goes on to say the Holy Family Church in Gaza was struck last weekend. The location of the church was included on a list of coordinates provided to the Israeli military by aid organizations and staffers on Capitol Hill in an effort to protect those sheltering there. We reported in the last few days, among others, about the elderly mother and her daughter who were sheltering at the Holy Family Church. This is what the Pope referred to when he talked about Israel engaging in terrorism. First, the mom was hit. The daughter carries her, and then she's hit. This is Pope Francis speaking on his 87th birthday at the Vatican Sunday.
Yes.
And let us not forget our brothers and sisters suffering from war in Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, and other conflict zones. May the approach of Christmas strengthen our commitment to open paths of peace. I continue to receive from Gaza very serious and painful news. Unarmed civilians are being bombed and shot at. And this has even happened inside the Holy Family Parish compound, where there are no terrorists, but families, children, and sick people with disabilities, and nuns. A mother and her daughter, Miss Nahida Khalil Antan, and her daughter Samar Kamal Antan, were killed and others wounded by the snipers as they went to the bathroom. The house of Mother Teresa's nuns was damaged. Their generator hit. Some say it's terrorism. It's war. Yes, it's war. It's terrorism. That is why Scripture says that God stops war, breaks bows, and breaks spears. Let us pray to the Lord for peace.
So that's the Pope speaking on his 87th birthday. I want to go on with this Politico piece. It says a church and a convent were struck in Gaza. Listed among Christian facilities, congressional staffers had flagged to Israeli authorities for protection, according to a series of emails from October. The emails, which were obtained by Politico, show an increasingly frenzied back and forth between Catholic Relief Services, one of the largest Christian aid organizations in Gaza, and Senate staff over an effort to get a commitment from Israel to avoid targeting a number of buildings where its staff and civilians were sheltering. They would ultimately be attacked. Reverend Mitri Raheb, your response.
You know, Israel have been attacking churches, mosques, hospitals, schools, universities. Believe it or not, 11 universities were destroyed in this war. Over 200 schools were destroyed. Most of the hospitals, except 9, are out of service right now because of Israeli attacks on them. But let's come to the churches. You know, this is not the first attack that happened last Saturday that the Pope talked about, because the first attack on a Christian institutions happened to the Ahli Hospital, the so-called Baptist hospitals that belong actually to the Anglican Church. And then Israel had an airstrike on the Greek Orthodox Church, St. Porphyrius, where they destroyed fully the assembly hall of that church, where 50 Christians were having refuge, 20 were killed, and 14 were injured. And then Israel destroyed a brand new state-of-the-art Arab Orthodox cultural and social center. It costed $6 million. It was inaugurated just a few months ago, and it was made to rubble. It doesn't exist anymore. You cannot see it anymore. And then Israel attacked the Rosary Sister, another Catholic school. This last week, they attacked, and the Pope spoke about it, actually a rehabilitation center for children with disability that is run by the Sisters of Mother Teresa. And they attacked again last week the Ahli Hospital that is now almost out of service, beside the sniper killing these the older woman with her daughter within the Holy Family compound. And you know what? When some other parishioners in that compound wanted to go out to help them and to save them, Israel launched a missile on them, and 10 people from that parish were injured in that missile attack. I'm on daily basis in contact with those two parishes, to see how they are doing. And I tell you, just a few hours ago, I received again another cry for help that compound, the Holy Family compound, is surrounded by Israeli tanks, and Israeli snipers are all around on the rooftops of the neighboring buildings. And this is just 2 days before Christmas. These are the Christmas gifts of Israel for the Christian community in Gaza. And I fear that this is the end of the Christian presence in Gaza. And you know, the Christian presence in Gaza is a 2,000 years old presence. I mean, these are not new converts. Christianity came to Gaza already in the 1st century. And throughout the last 20 centuries, there was a living Christian work there, and actually an affluent Christian community in Gaza. And I think this community is going to be extinct because of Israel war on Gaza. 3% of the Christian community in Gaza was murdered in these 75 days. 3%.
I wanted to play for you, and we played this earlier in the week, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum, recently appearing on British news program LBC and claiming, in fact, there are no Christians in Gaza.
Why is it necessary, it is reported, to start shooting, having snipers outside a church?
I saw the reports this morning. The church, there are no churches in Gaza, so I'm not quite sure where the report is talking about.
There's a Catholic church in there, isn't there, that is...
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no Christians because they were driven out by...
Well, respectfully, there are Christians, because I spoke to an MP yesterday who has family members in the church who are Christians.
Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know who was attacked. I didn't see the report.
So that's the Jerusalem deputy mayor, Fleur Hassan Nahum, speaking on the British news program LBC. Your response, Reverend?
You know, I mean, we are unfortunately used to Israeli lies and fake news that they keep spreading. You know, how they cannot know that there are a Christian community in Gaza. I mean, you spoke before that they got the coordinate of the two churches, like they get also the coordinate of the hospitals. Remember, these Christians every year were applying for permits to come over Christmas to Bethlehem. So the Israeli authorities, they know everyone by name, by picture, by age, by gender. Again, but these are the lies. And you know why Israel can do all of this? Because they are impugned. Nobody, because of the American veto, brings them actually and make them responsible for what they are doing. And now they actually are destroying all of Gaza. And guess who will pay for it? They will call some Arab countries or Europe or others to rebuild Gaza. Once Israel is made responsible for its atrocities, they will stop doing that. For me as a pastor, I have to say, you know, imagine if a synagogue was attacked and 20 Jewish worshippers in a synagogue were killed by an airstrike by any country. The whole Christian world will be in uproar. Unfortunately, we don't hear the Christian community actually doing much about the atrocity happening in Gaza today.
Reverend Rahab, I wanted to ask you about your latest book, Decolonizing Palestine, which challenges the weaponization of biblical texts to support the current settler colonial state of Israel. That's how it's described. And I was wondering if you could comment on some of the most adamant supporters of the Israeli military are U.S. evangelicals, and some of the fiercest critics are progressive Jews, like Jewish Voice for Peace. And if you could comment on both.
Yes, actually, in this book, I try to show that actually the current state of Israel in its occupation of the West Bank and Gaza is actually a settler colonial project. And a settler colonial project means these are settlers that they come, in this case, from Europe mainly, to settle permanently in another country, not to live with the native people, but to replace the native people and to drive them out of their own country. And to do that, they have to create a policing state, and they have to demonize the native people as savage, as terrorists, as backwards, as human animals, as we are hearing from Israeli politicians right now. And actually, if you heard Netanyahu when he said that the Israeli troops are entering Gaza that same day in October, late October, he quoted the Bible and talked about Amalek. And that is from 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, where God is telling Saul to go and extend the whole Amalek community, not to spare man, woman, elderly, child, even ox and sheep. And so this is a call for genocide. And this is, again, a settler colonial tool that was done in North America, it was done in South Africa, it was done in many other countries. So what happened in the United States 400 years ago to the Native Americans is happening to Palestinians today in Gaza. So this is what I'm talking about. And this weaponizing of the Bible by Christian Zionists is something that is for us very troublesome. You know, for us, these Christian Zionists are actually anti-Semite because they don't love the Jewish people. They want all Jews to come to Palestine. According to their ideology, that 2/3 will be killed in a war and the last third will convert to Christianity. So basically, they are calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people. But Netanyahu has no problem to share bed with them, not out of love, but to fulfill selfish desires, so to say. And I'm so glad that actually Netanyahu doesn't represent the whole Jewish people. You know, Judaism is very broad, like Christianity and Islam. It's a very broad religion. You have from the far right to the far left. And for me, groups like Jewish Voices for Peace, Not in My Names, and many other groups that I'm in contact with them, they are a sign of hope that actually together as Jews, Muslims, and Christians who are interested in equality, in human dignity, in justice, so that both peoples can share the land and the three religions can live side by side. I think this is the vision that we are calling for.
Reverend Mitri Rahab, we want to thank you for being with us. Reverend Mitri Rahab is the president of Dar al-Khalima University in Bethlehem, Palestinian Christian theologian who's authored many books, including Decolonizing Palestine, the Land, the People, the Bible. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
This part just came to mind to me, but solidarity to Yemen. And one must admire the courage of Yemen, and and Yemen's bravery to defy the Zionists. Amalek, according to Judaism, is the force which attempts to lead the Jewish people away from their own Torah culture. This means that actually the state of Israel is Amalek. So because we, the Jewish nation, are commanded to destroy Amalek, then this means that we are required to destroy the Zionist state of Amalek, which falsely bears the name of Israel. In November 2023, Israeli police violently attacked Orthodox Jewry on the streets of Jerusalem, vandalized property, and used force to remove Palestinian flags throughout the neighborhood. This is part of their ongoing brutal oppression of the Jewish Palestinian community, who stood in opposition to Zionism and its occupation of Palestine from the very beginning in 1948, up until now. As Israel commits genocide in Gaza, the Orthodox community has denounced the atrocities, called for an end to the occupation, and rallied in support of a total free Palestine. The Zionist police regularly carry out aggression and raids in the pro-Palestinian neighborhood, which they do themselves identify as Palestinian, as Jewish Palestinians. The raids and the arrests, and they arrest members of the community and threaten anyone who speaks up for the freedom of Palestine. Witness the Jewish Palestinians getting harassed by the Zionists. The name of this Jewish Palestinian community, which predates the state of Israel, is called Me'er Sharim. This next clip should be, more known and more publicized than it is. But long live Me'er Sharim, long live the Jewish Palestinians, and in solidarity still with the Christian Palestinians.
שם יש עבודות, אתה לא הולך, עכשיו אתה עומד פה.
יונתן ניסים.
לא יעצור אותך, שאתה הולך.
בוא נראה אותך, בוא נראה שוב עכשיו. מחבלים! מחבלים מכאן!
חמאסניקים! מחבלים! איפה הכניסו נוער? ניקח אתכם! מחבלים! תלכו לעזה! מחבלים! מחבלים!
חייבים להוריד את זה, אין מצב, אין מצב, חייבים להוריד את זה.
רוצחים!
וואי, that's so good. Det er en af af der andre, det er en feste video. Det er en af der andre. Det giver הכניסה הקרקעית תגיע.
אל תפריע! שומע? אני מזהיר אותך פעם ראשונה, אל תפריע! אל תפריע! אל תפריע!
הוא עיתונאי, אל תיגע בו!
שמעת מה אני אומר לך?
רד ממני, מה נפלת עליי?
אל תפריע!
איפה הפרעתי? הוא ביקש שאני אצא.
אל תפריע!
לא? תפסיק להציק לי! אני עם כולם, תפסיק להציק לי! תראה לו תעודת עיתונאי וזהו.
עוד פעם, אתה תעבור אותי מה עשית? אתה שם מפריע!
אתה פעם ראשונה אומר לי לעזוב. אתה פעם ראשונה אומר לי לעזוב.
פעם עשירית אמרתי לך! תיכנס לפנים!
זה פעם ראשונה.
אני מצלם טוב, תשמעי גמור. כמעט. Nicht auf dem Treppenlobber. זרוק, זרוק. מחבלים! אתם בדרום 5 שעות. ב100 שערים אתם פה על הדקה. ממשיכים מורשתו של היטלר. נכדים של היטלר.
Okay, this next clip is from TRT World. This presentation came out yesterday.
This year's nativity scene at Bethlehem Lutheran Church looks unusual. Baby Jesus wrapped with a kufiyah and surrounded by rubble.
This year Christmas is different. This year Bethlehem is sad. We're lamenting. We're concerned. We're not celebrating in a normal way because we're concerned about our family in Gaza, about our people.
More than 20,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza by Israeli forces in its brutal military campaign. The majority are children and women. Manger Square, right outside the Church of the Nativity, is traditionally the focal point of Christmas celebrations here. But as you can see, there is no sign of Christmas, overshadowed by war. The festivities have been cancelled. No tree, no lights, and no nativity scene. And Palestinians say they can't celebrate while the onslaught on Gaza continues. This is how the city celebrated Christmas in 2022, a stark contrast to this year. Mayor of Bethlehem, Hanna Hananiya, says Palestinian Christians are in no mood to celebrate this year.
We removed the decoration and lights on this network that we hung it last year, because for us and for all people in Bethlehem, we will not celebrate Christmas celebrations, and we are in mourning, and we feel very sad on what's happening in Gaza Strip.
Thousands of tourists from all over the world flock to Bethlehem at this time of year, but you'll be hard-pressed to find one. Many store owners chose to close their doors, while those who opened spend their time sitting outside their stores, sipping coffee. Aboud Subuh, a tour guide, says this year was looking up, but since the war in Gaza erupted, all of his tours were cancelled. Now, Aboud spends time at his family's gift shop.
Bring a lot of stuff, but fortunately there is no sales. We don't have any sales. We haven't seen any tourist, anybody come to buy some stuff. What we can do? Nothing.
This hotel owner says until October 7th, business was booming, and they had started to recover from the post-pandemic period. He had to let all his employees go.
Reservations were over 100%. There were not enough rooms for sale this season, but all these reservations were cancelled after the 7th of October until the Easter season.
Palestinians say with the world's attention on the city of Bethlehem, they hope that their message will be received.
Our message is that we're tired of being ignored as a people, and it's overdue now for the Palestinians to have justice, to have peace.
Mohammed Al-Qasim, TRT World, Bethlehem, occupied West Bank.
This entire video that you've been watching is a video in solidarity with Palestinian Christians. This video in solidarity with Palestinian Christians will end on another Al Jazeera clip, which came out on December 5th, 2023. Merry Christmas, Palestine. The Jewish socialist boon denounces the Zionist actions. Amalek is the state of Israel according to authentic Judaism. Just a fun fact. Long live Palestine, free Palestine, end the state of Israel, its occupation, its brutal genocide, hold Europe accountable for what has been done to the Jewish people in the Holocaust and what is happening right now to the Palestinians, hold the Hebrew civil society, which falsely calls itself Israeli, accountable, help whatever fringe dissidents are in the Zionist state that, stand with the opposition of Zionism rather than the preservation of the Zionist state, even though that they are very few. That doesn't make them less worth it. And unfortunately, to the Jewish Jewish Europeans who are in support of Palestine, and the Americanized Jewry and the Canadianized Jewry, despite the fact that we in majority are with, Palestine, we cannot really count on the Hebrews here. So anyway, one needs to understand that to grasp the Jewish plight, you need to separate it from any claims of a Zionist plight, which is not. The state of Israel doesn't have a plight. They don't have a plight. And while, we do make the distinction between civil society and the state, the civil society of the Hebrews requires re-education, just as the Germans required re-education. And all of this, it opens up new doors of conversation between Jewish people and Christians. Because think about this. The Zionists falsely speak in our name. Christian Zionists speak falsely in the name of Christianity. More and more people are becoming aware of the Oriental churches and are dropping the favor of the Occidental churches. That's the Western churches. I'm not claiming this is exactly happening in groves, everywhere, but it's a thing that's happened significant enough that there is more of a persecution against the Christians of the Orient by the Western Church. The only ones of the Western Church who are questioning that are the original Western Christians, ironically. The sad tragedy of the Roman Catholic Church is that the Roman Catholic Church's papacy and its religion was often divorced from one another. So, but you see, there is a pushback within certain Roman Catholic bishops to do things. And while it's largely lip service of popes apologizing to indigenous people and apologizing to Jewish people and apologizing to Oriental Christians and Muslims, there has been a consistency. We have to give credit to the Catholic Church right now. There's been a consistency, and even though a lot of it is weak and sounding neutral at times, for what it's worth, the condemnation from the Pope against Zionism is getting more and more there. I mean, he still speaks overly diplomatic, but there is new opportunities in tragedies. Okay? The Western Church makes Christianity look bad, and the Zionists make us look bad. And then the Western media tries to make ISIS look worse than both when ISIS is nothing compared to what the Western churches do and what the Zionists do. So that's so ironic, That is where the real crime against Islam takes place, is painting the falsest picture of the Muslims as you can. And as much as ISIS did, and as bad as ISIS was surpassed before this and during this and continues to by the Zionists. And they still don't measure. And by the way, the ISIS never caught up to the Crusaders in the body count, just so you know. And ISIS is ultimately broken as a group. But, it's just... Consider the fact that where we are today is that we have to face the fact that people are trying to avoid accountability, and they're trying to avoid responsibility. And privilege offers them this. So it's not just enough that, Palestine should be restored and the Palestinians should go home. What about their holy sites? They should be rebuilt. What about the fact that, I'm sorry, but Hebrews need to be re-educated. They need to be re-educated. And because many of them are just post-Jewish, they should be given the option to convert more to the Baha'i faith, many of them. And those of them that are Hebrew Catholics, because those people exist, shouldn't be persecuted because they converted to a religion that they believed in over Judaism. In Judaism, we don't attack you if you leave the religion. We do tend to disown you, though, and as bigoted as you think that is, I actually believe that that's perfectly just. Because it's not just a religion you're leaving your nation, basically, who's persecuted often by the group that you then go to, typically. But anyway, that's aside from the point. when I look at the Hebrews and how much they're not into Judaism, one thing that I often, warn people about is the Hebrew nation is not one of the Jewish peoples. And it's not even a nation yet. To be a nation, the ethnic groups would have to merge more, because obviously to be a nation, and this is what it has always historically been, a nation is a cultural gathering of the peoplehood. So the glue that makes that endure is either one or two things: religion or ethnicity. And if you're like the Armenians and it's religion and ethnicity connected into the culture, then you're actually a folk, which is funny because this means that the Germans were never a folk. But anyway, this crisis is a Holocaust. It's being done in our name. And we haven't been radical enough. And now this is happening. And we can talk about it, but words are just words. We need to stop playing it safe. Everybody's afraid, the Patriot Act. You know what the Patriot Act was done for here in the United States? You know why the Patriot Act was done? The Patriot Act was not done to protect America from terrorism. It was meant to keep an eye on everybody. The war on terror, if you think about it, is the most absurd thing that ever came up, because terrorism is just a tactic of underdogs. It's not a very good tactic. It's a tactic I fully do distance myself from, because not only does it not work, it gives the false image of the revolutionary when the revolutionary should be supported. So, anyway, yeah, it's absurd, because really the war on terror is really a war on Antifa. Remember, terrorism is what the big army calls the little army. So anyway, I really, really, really hope that everybody got something out of this. Again, Merry Christmas, Palestine, and free Palestine, free Gaza.
While the offensive in Gaza intensifies, Israeli soldiers have been raiding towns and cities in the occupied West Bank. Areas near Bethlehem and Jenin have been targeted once again. A young man was killed in the Kalandia refugee camp in northern Jerusalem and his brother arrested. Bulldozers have destroyed roads there, pavements and water supply lines in Jenin. Nida Ibrahim is live for us in Bethlehem. And Nida, perhaps you can give us a bit more detail on what's been going on, these ongoing raids, pressure relentless in the occupied West Bank.
As many analysts would suggest that Israel is not interested in opening another front here in the occupied West Bank, people on the ground are telling you that this intensive use of violence against Palestinians during these raids that never seem to be ending in different places across the occupied West Bank is only making tension brew. The 25-year-old who has been killed in the Kalandia refugee camp, who is, by the way, the second to be killed in 24 hours in the same place in Kalandia, he was behind a door that the Israelis have detonated to enter inside and arrest his brother. Talk about the feelings of injustice, the feeling of pain amongst those families who are losing their loved ones. All in all, across the occupied West Bank, we're talking about more than 40 Palestinians who have been arrested as a result of those raids. They are intensifying, but also there is something that we've been seeing happening sporadically, now is becoming more of like a policy, detaining family members in order to get people to hand themselves over to the Israeli forces. So when they go to a house or to a city and they don't find someone, they arrest their relatives and then pressuring them to hand themselves in. This is the case that we're seeing across the occupied West Bank, and those raids have also happened here where I am in Bethlehem. This city around this time usually celebrates Christmas, usually is festive, but this year all Christmas celebrations have been cancelled. And I want to show you a little bit from in front of the Lutheran church here in Bethlehem, where the pastor and some of the Christian families have decided to mark Christmas in a different way. Instead of having a Christmas tree that is decorated with ornaments, we're seeing baby Jesus wrapped in a kofiyeh, Palestinian kofiyeh, and is placed in a manger under the rubble. We'll talk a little bit more about that with Pastor Mundar Ishaq at the Lutheran Church. What's the idea behind having Jesus under the rubble instead of a Christmas tree?
Christmas celebrations are cancelled this year in Bethlehem for obvious reasons. It's impossible to celebrate when there is a massacre, a genocide taking place in Gaza with our people. And so the idea was to send a message to the world first, but also to ourselves. A message to the world that this is what Christmas looks like in Palestine. This is what Christmas looks like in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. Children being pulled from under the rubble, families being displaced with their homes destroyed. And while the world is celebrating Christmas, at the birthplace of Jesus, this is what Christmas looks like.
This is usually a season for celebrations and also a season for hope. Is there hope left?
We have hope in our faith. We have hope. The Christmas story actually gives us hope in the fact that Jesus was born among the occupied. This is what happened 2,000 years ago. And so going back to this manger setting, it tells us that baby Jesus is in solidarity with those who are suffering, with those who are oppressed. So in this Christmas, we find our only source of hope is our faith in a just God and in our solidarity with one another. And I hope that this message gets to the world, that we are united in Palestine. And sadly, right now, we are united in our pain.
There's so much detail going on here at building this manger. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you placed the manger and all those details?
Yeah, the image basically came from what we see on our screens, children being pulled out of the rubble and people coming and searching under the rubble to find any sign of life, any sign of hope. These images have broken us, and we wanted to bring them to the church. And usually, a typical manger would have baby Jesus in the middle, and then the Holy Family, the shepherds and the magi surrounding him. But this time around, we thought of all these characters in the baby, in the gospel narrative, in the Christmas narrative, being around the house as if they are searching for Jesus, as if they are trying to find him in the midst of the rubble with dust all over them. Again, we want to bring the Christmas story, make it real in our context today. And I think if Jesus is to be born today, he would be born under the rubble in Gaza with those who are suffering. And the magi and the shepherds would come and search for Jesus in the midst of the rubble of a destroyed house, as we see today.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mundar Ishaq of the Lutheran Church. He was just telling me earlier that while the celebrations of Christmas have been cancelled, the prayers will not stop, and they will keep praying and hoping for peace.
Nida Ibrahim, heartbreaking stuff. Thanks for that.